Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Paul Covill. He is the Vice President and Relationship Manager for Burke and Herbert Bank right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I'm really excited to have Paul here. Like so many others with our listeners, this is a graduate of Leadership Fredericksburg. Recently, he was in our most recent graduating class in 2024, and we just love being able to chat leadership with folks who've been through Leadership Fredericksburg with us. But let me tell you a little bit more about him before we get started. Paul has over 15 years of banking experience, working with commercial clients for the past 10 years. Prior to joining Burke and Herbert Bank, he served as Vice President and Treasury Management consultant at Wells Fargo Bank. He's super active in the community. This is just goes without saying how many things he does in the community. It's just tremendous. The fun stuff, he is a Little League coach for baseball in Spotsylvania County. Also, through Parks and Recs, a basketball coach in Spotsylvania County. I bet the kids love you.
Yes. The most important job is coaching 9-year-olds. That's the best.
Yeah, see, so we could do a whole show about that. He's also involved with the Rappahannock-Fredericksburg Rotary Club, an active member there. He is a vice chair of the board with the Fredericksburg Area Food Bank. That is awesome. And again, recent grad of Leadership Fredericksburg and currently serving as a mentor in our new program. So, wow, thank you for all that you do in the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we look forward to hearing a little bit more. So let's just dive in, and I'll start with asking you to tell our listeners about your leadership journey.
Sure. Yeah, my leadership journey. I have 4 children and a lovely wife, and my leadership journey started when I was 19. My first son was born. I call him a little gift from God. It wasn't part of the plan, but sometimes there's a bigger plan. And it was when you're thrust into leading a family before you're ready to
that's super young. Yeah, it was good for you.
It was that was probably the start of the leadership journey, whether I liked it or not.
Right.
And then professionally, because of that, really had to kind of jump into the workforce because kids are expensive, and had to jump into it before I got full 4-year education. So I think that's kind of when I realized that before you have skills, the only way you can really differentiate is, one, being someone that people enjoy working with and being around, and two is working really hard. If you show up and you work hard, you can sometimes be more valuable than someone that has a skill set that doesn't do those things.
Yep.
So that's kind of, I think, where my leadership journey started. And then I was, Wells Fargo was a great employer. They had a great tuition reimbursement program, so I was able to get educated.
That's nice.
Yeah, and roles opened up and was able to kind of move my way through the large corporate world at Wells Fargo, and then was blessed to have an opportunity to move to a community bank about 3 years ago, which fits my personality a little bit better. It allows me to serve the local market a little bit better, and it's been a great couple of years at Burke and Herbert Bank and working with the team there. So
yeah, so as a community bank there, that word community is really important, and you've definitely been demonstrating that in a short period of time.
Yeah, thank you.
What were some of the things that you did in that early, back to the 19-year-old? I like hearing that, where you say, how you worked really hard and all that, and had a great attitude. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, I think what I realized as a, again, first of all, I was definitely thrust into a role I wasn't ready for, which I think is an interesting thing. I think sometimes you are a leader and you might self-assess and go, am I ready for this? And you'll be surprised what you're ready for if you have an open mind and work hard. And I think that's kind of what I dove into, is like, I was not ready to be a dad, but I'm a dad. So, you have to figure out how to lead, and then that translated really well into the professional environment too. It was, hey, listen, I might not be I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but if I can figure out how to help people, how to support the organization that I'm working for, and how to put in the time and effort to make a difference, that resonates with employers and gives you opportunities to move up to different areas. And I think that's, still holds true today, even as you progress in your career. I think if you consistently focus on self-development, that process never ends, really. And I think, you mentioned Leadership Fredericksburg. That was a big draw for me. It was another opportunity to, you can always improve upon where you're at today, and you're always evolving.
We learn a lot through, I don't care how many times I'm in like an active listening course, let's say that's one of the sessions. It's a great reminder of the wandering mind, right?
100%.
We go straight to the grocery list or whatever it is.
That's right.
What are we going to make for dinner tonight? Wait, and then they ask you a question.
Yeah.
You're in trouble now, buddy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, along the way, I'm sure there have been people that have impacted your leadership, mentors or others that have had a tremendous impact. Tell us about, one or two of those.
Yeah. Well, I'll start, locally. I've been really lucky to work with Jeff Rouse for the whole time I've lived in Fredericksburg, which is about 10 years. And, Jeff has a lot of leadership experience and has been a mentor for me. And just, I think watching how he operates and kind of leads in a listen first, take action after, he's
good at that.
He's good at that. Right. And that's something that I think, I've learned a lot from. Greg Mellers is another manager that at Burke and Herbert Bank went through Leadership Fredericksburg. I think he was in one of the early classes.
I think he was around 2015. Maybe.
Yeah. So he's a mentor and is now our regional president. And then if I go even further back, I remember, probably the first guy that, his leadership style resonated with me was like my high school baseball coach. Kind of why I love coaching today, because as you get older, you realize the impact those guys make through your youth.
They really do.
It is tremendous. And so he was just, I had played for coaches that were very, when adversity hit, they were very volatile. They would get angry when things didn't go our way.
So much fun.
Yeah. And he was so focused on, hey, if we handle our process, if our process is consistent, we don't have to worry about the results, because the results will be what they're supposed to be. And I love that approach. And I remember when things wouldn't go well in the game we were playing, you kind of look at your leader, and if your leader's calm and staying focused, there's kind of that, you get a sense of calmness. And he brought that, and I realized, man, that's something that really resonated with me as I moved into the professional environment. Is there's it might not be, in a game, adversity can hit with a bad play or whatever. In professionally, it can, be a simple challenge that comes up, and in banking, there's plenty of those that come up. Things don't always go as you plan. And so I think the ability to react to those things in a calm and thoughtful manner is, something, and focusing on process rather than results.
That's good. And with banking and really most industry over the last few years, we've all had to absorb a lot of change, a lot of quick change, a lot of up and downs over the last 5 years since the worldwide pandemic kind of hit, and then just all of the different ripple effects. How do you see things today compared to before that?
Yeah, well, I think what you said is, really insightful, because I think technology advances have happened so quickly, and then COVID definitely changed so many things. Yeah. And I think the ability to be adaptable to change is a really underrated skill set, because I think as humans, it's sort of ingrained in us to, fight or flight change, right? Change is bad often, but I think if you, if you're adaptable to change and you stay positive about it, you end up getting great opportunities through that, because people that are maybe less hesitant to do that, kind of fall behind. I mean, the one consistent thing that I've learned is that change is constant. It is constantly happening. And I think, to your point, since COVID and probably over the last 10 years, that has accelerated in how quickly things change because of technology and because of just AI, for instance. Man, it's taken over the world, right?
Yeah,
that and Amazon.
it's pretty wow. It's a bit overwhelming, right? And
right.
it's for some people, it's it's just hard to conceive of all the different components to it. But we try to keep up and not become a dinosaur to fall behind or anything.
No, we're not that. No.
Well, as we think about your approach with change and all, how would you describe generally your leadership style?
Yeah. I think my leadership style is, again, and this is, I mentioned it with the mentors, I think it's a lot of, trying to understand, trying to make sure I listen before I act or say, because I think the more information you can gather before acting or doing something, the better. I'm ingrained to just want to act. Like that's how let's do something and then we'll figure out how it goes. So I think as I've gotten older and learned from some of the people I work with, it's like if you can listen and understand before you take action, that really helps. And so I don't know. I think my leadership style is trying to make sure I'm supportive of the people I'm working with. Make sure I understand where they're coming from and what makes them tick. And then going back to that word adapt, trying to adapt my communication, my style to fit the people that I'm working with. And I think you get the most out of people that you work with and that are working with you when you're able to adapt to their style.
Right, right. Great stuff. While you're being supportive and you're doing all those things, sometimes you still have to hold people accountable.
Yeah, yep.
And that can be uncomfortable.
Yes, it can.
How do you sort of approach that?
Yeah. So first, I want to say this. That is easily the biggest thing I've struggled with.
Okay.
And I'll mention, I'll throw out another name, Brad Neal, who I know you know very well. He was the mentor I had in Leadership Fredericksburg.
I love Brad Neal.
He's the best. He is the best. And me and him talked about that a lot, and he gave me a lot of good advice. And you do have to hold people accountable and challenge people. And I think what it came down to and what his advice was make sure you're just honest. Like, if you're honest with people about, and not trying to sugarcoat things.
Kind of the why or.
Yeah. Just like, being transparent in, if something isn't going the way it should go, I think there's ways to be, respectful, professional, but also transparent and honest. And I think I've learned that if you do that, those conversations that in my head are going to be really, really challenging end up not being that challenging.
I know. Isn't it amazing?
It is. I mean, what you build up in your head and how those things are going to go, it never goes nearly as bad as at least as I think they're going to go. Yeah. So, I think if you're honest about it and people might not like what you say, but they typically respect it. So.
Well, good. That's all great stuff.
Yeah.
There's folks coming up all around you before you blink. You're already in that moment of, wow, people are looking at me as a leader, or someone more advanced. What advice would you give to somebody who either, they might not be the 19-year-old dad, or they might be, but they're starting to advance or begin a career in your area or work in the community? Like, what kind of thoughts would you give to them?
So I'd have two main things. I think the first one is, trust yourself and trust your instincts, because I think sometimes when people get roles, or even if they're thrust into positions that they don't feel ready for, they're probably more ready than they realize. And so, trust who you are, trust your values, and trust that you can be successful. I think the second thing is never stop learning, kind of that humble approach to leadership where, if you are in a role, it doesn't mean that you can't improve, you can't learn, you can't adapt, you can't change. And all those things are usually for the better.
Right.
There's a reason why people that have lived longer typically are wiser because they've learned and picked up things that over the years.
Let's
right?
hope.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time though, and at least I think back to how dumb I was when I was 25 compared to now I'm 39. It's like, man, I can't believe, what was I doing? But you know,
just wait, young man.
yeah. So maybe when I'm 50, I'll be like, what was I doing when I was 39? But anyway, I think if you can consistently try to self-improve, self-develop, and you know, learn, that's my advice. Trust yourself, and then never stop trying to get better.
Yeah, trust yourself, being true to yourself.
Yes, yeah.
That's always the best thing. You know, you can kind of feel it, like that sick feeling pit in your stomach when you're not aligned. Right.
It's a great point. You can. Yep.
Yeah. And that can be in community too. You know, early on, I used to say yes to every offer to serve on a committee or a board. You just want to dive in, right?
Right.
And so it was a great organization. It wasn't necessarily where I was aligned.
Yep.
I liked it, but it wasn't my passion. And a whole lot of the mission or the board's work was just purely around fundraising. And it kind of conflicted with what I did at the chamber, where I had to raise money all day.
Yeah, right.
So I was always feeling sick in the meetings and stuff, and then one day I had that, and I was younger than you are today, but I had that aha moment, and it was because a wise mentor gave me that permission. He didn't know it, but I'll tell you this: he was a chair of our first Military Affairs Committee here at the chamber.
Oh, very cool.
In 2007. And actually, I love talking about him. Wonderful human, Ted Hans.
Okay.
Fabulous Navy commander, worked at Dahlgren. Now he was a government contractor running a big company.
Yeah,
and we had just launched. We had all these big plans. He was my volunteer leader. I was a staff. He was a volunteer. And his boss went in for a routine surgery and passed away, like on the table type thing. Sudden, young, about 40.
Oh gosh,
the whole thing. It was very bad.
Yep.
Ted came back and said, "I'm not going to be able to lead our group. But I've talked to my vice chair, and he's going to take over." Who stepped right in? Who was a Marine, Ty Schreiber, who said, "I'm ready. A year early.
Yep.
I'm here. I'll do it." They worked together, but Ted took that role and stepped back. And at that point where I was too indecisive about making a decision like that, like sitting there with the stomach turning or whatever, not as important, not as critical, but it made me realize you can go back and say, I know I committed to this, but it's not the right fit right now.
Right.
Okay, so it's a long way of telling you that story, but it was his wisdom of making that decision and not screwing up what we were doing, because he had to step into a heavier role at work right then.
Yeah, there's times where I think your employer or an organization you're volunteering for, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just doesn't, like you said, you can kind of feel it. It doesn't align with what makes you tick, and that's okay.
Yeah,
and it just means that there's probably a different way you should go, and find something that fits better, right? So, I've that happened throughout my career, and ended up finding a different opportunity, and that's okay.
Yeah, and there's those peaks and valleys where if you've just committed to being the pancake leader at Rotary or something,
right.
And right then something like major changed at work or at home.
Yeah,
and the best thing you can do is go straight to whoever it is at Rotary and say, I'm not going to be able to do it.
I'm a little overwhelmed.
Other than let everybody down and and be mad at yourself and all of that, because and even to help seek the solution. I think I know who can help with it, and people will generally do that. So that's the thing with leadership is to your whole point of just being open and explaining it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So on either way, wow, it's just so great. So all right, the kids with the coaching.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how would they describe you?
I don't know. That's a funny question. I hope to gosh they think they have a blast, and I think they do. We have a lot of fun, and if I do anything with the kids that I coach, I try to say there's two things we got to focus on. One, you're here because you want to get better at this sport, right? So let's focus on how do we get better. And that's, that means you do have to listen at practice. We do have to do the drills that we have to do. But I promise if we do those things, we're gonna end up having a lot of fun as well. And so hopefully they would say, man, I love Coach Paul, and he's a lot of fun to work with, and I've gotten a lot better at whatever sport, whether it's basketball or baseball.
Yeah,
so that
yep.
And I will see that's my favorite part is you look at these kids when you first start coaching them on the first day of practice, and then you get to the end of the season and you see how much better they've gotten.
Oh.
It's a really neat experience, and I remember that as a kid, and so to be able to do it, now that I've gotten older and I'm slower and can't play sports anymore without hurting myself.
Well,
it's the nature of a beast. So
I love it. Well, I think that's really great. And looking at it, that's a good process of here we were at the beginning and here we are now.
Yeah,
and same thing goes with the different, the boards, the committees and all of that. I'll ask you about your passion too with the food bank, because I think that's really important. Yeah. And you're giving back in a big way there.
Yeah. The food bank is, I think I was listening to a sermon once, and it said you should try to serve to support things or eliminate things that break your heart. And I started thinking about what breaks my heart, and it's thinking about kids and people, especially there's plenty that are working hard and just can't quite make it work. Heard Janelle talk about the Alice population. Yeah. That's the population I think of, and it's like to think that there's kids and families that don't know where their next meal is coming from is heartbreaking.
It is.
And so the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank is the largest hunger fighting organization in this region by a lot. It's the only food bank that's part of the Feeding America network, and as I've gotten into the organization and seen the work that they've done, and do a good job with their donor dollars to maximum. We tout that, and it's true. Every dollar that's donated provides 2 meals to the community. So if you donate $500 to the food bank, that's 1,000 meals that we're able to provide, and it's there's in this region, in the counties we support are Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg City, King George, Caroline, and then part of Orange. In those 6 counties, food insecurity is about 10%, meaning if you meet 10 people, one of them doesn't know where their next meal is coming from. So I didn't realize the problem until I got into the organization, and I didn't realize the scope of our local food bank until I got into the organization.
It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And so, if that's a passion for anybody listening, I would say constantly need volunteers, constantly need donors. We're audited. We make sure that donor dollars are put to good use, and all our financial statements are available. So anyway, I just, it's a great organization. It's certainly something I'm passionate about, and it's been fun to be a part of. So
good. Well, we're lucky to have you here in our community.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all that you do.
Yeah.
As we start to wind down our time together, I was going to ask if you had a favorite quote or a motto that you like to share with our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. No, I have a couple. So my mom, this maybe goes back to the adaptability comments, but my mom used to say, and I remember she was about 15 when she got divorced. And I remember watching her navigate, which was a very sad time of her life, and kind of, I was not the easiest 15-year-old to raise either. So, looking back on it now, and I remember talking to her, I was like, how did you kind of deal with that? And she said, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And I think that resonates because, there's always stuff going on, and it's, there's always life can throw some punches. But that quote kind of made me think, like, you can always find the positive side of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is one of my favorites. That's from my mom. And then my grandfather, who passed away a couple years ago, he had a great quote. And he said, and he would say this every single day. I always thought it was kind of corny, but then as I thought about it, it's such a simple quote. I love it. He said, hey, make it a great day and make it a better day for somebody else. And it's such a really basic mantra, but if you literally went out every day and made your day good as it could be, and made someone's day a little bit better, that's a pretty darn good life. So
nice.
I loved both of those quotes, and both of them from family members, and hopefully my kids, hopefully when they get older, will say these are their favorite quotes because their pops shoves it down their throat a little bit. But anyway.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, thank you for sharing those.
Absolutely.
Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I will tout. You know what? I will tout Leadership Fredericksburg because I do want to say three things. One, the skills you can develop. What it did for me was not just you do a lot of learning about yourself, but I think maybe more importantly, you learn about the way other people think that you interact with and work with, and how to communicate, why they do things that they do. Mm-hmm. And that was really helpful for me. I saw immediate results from implementing that information into what I do. Because it'd be like, why does that person work like that? Well, this is why they work like that. And actually, they are really good at this, this, and this. So find a way to lean into that. So that's number one. Number two, networking. I mean, I remember in the beginning you said, it's like a family. And I was like, oh, we'll see. But it really is. I mean, you do get into a network of really great people here locally that you can tap into whenever. And then the third thing I'll mention, I talked about passion for the food bank. There's not the service project you get to do through Leadership Fredericksburg. Mm-hmm. You get to come up and support a nonprofit at the end of that program, and that's a really neat opportunity, not only to learn about these nonprofits, but to hopefully add some value to what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So those three things. And for the cost, a lot of times, in my case, I was blessed to have my employer pick up the cost, but it's a really reasonable price tag for getting all those things. So
right.
That's my commercial for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'll get you to help sell some sponsorships for it.
Oh, there we go. Very good.
I really appreciate that. And referring to right from the beginning where we do the stuff around emotional intelligence and understanding self and understanding others.
Yep.
It makes all the difference, especially when we understand, they're not doing that to drive me crazy.
Right, exactly. It's like, wait, that person doesn't
It's not about
try.
me.
Exactly.
It's just their,
that's how they operate, and that's their mind works a little different. So
yeah. Good on you. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Susan.
And thank you so much for coming in and spending some time with us here today.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Again, thanks to our listeners for spending the time with us. I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today was Paul Covill. He is the Vice President and Relationship Manager at Burke and Herbert Bank here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. If you have not already liked and subscribed to the Chamber's Leader to Leader podcast, can you please go ahead and do so? Then you'll know when new episodes are available, and you'll learn more about all the great and awesome leaders in our region. Thank you. See you next time.